All right, welcome back for another Legal Breakdown episode. It's part of our series, Disclosure, Duties, and Dilemmas. George, want to talk a little bit more about escalation clauses today?
Gabe, great topic. You viewers, hopefully you recall that a few months ago, Gabe and I did a breakdown on escalation clauses.
We did.
Got a lot of feedback from that, a lot of hits on that breakdown. Let's review it again.
Okay. And again, you'll want to watch that previous video, but an escalation clauses, for those who may not see them very often, is essentially if I'm a buyer, if there's a house for $200,000, I want to offer $195,000. I might write an offer that says I'll buy your house, seller, for $195,000. However, if somebody else has another competing offer that beats mine, I'm willing to go up to $220,000 in $1,000 increments.
Gabe, I kind of want to break that down a little bit, okay? Instead of the whole thing like we did in the other video, can we narrow this conversation down to bona fide offer?
Okay.
I mean, how do you prove the existence of a bona fide offer? What would a buyer who has that escalation clause in their offer, what would they require for proof of a bona fide offer?
Yeah, so going back to my example that I just used, so if I'm that buyer, I've submitted that offer, right? $195,000, I'll go up to $220,000 in $1,000 increments, right? And then I get a contact from the listing agent, my agent does, and they say, congratulations, you just won this at $218,000. And I'm like, whoa, that's way more than that $195,000. What happened?
Yeah. So after you pick yourself up from the ground,
right? Thinking, what did I just do?
What did I just do to myself without knowing it, right? What do you do?
Yeah.
Right? First of all, I want to say this very briefly, is escalation clauses can be tricky, right?
Complicated.
And they're not for everyone to use, and they're not to be used, in my opinion, on every transaction.
No.
And you have to really be familiar with the language in an escalation clause, and particularly when we talk about the existence or the proving of a bona fide offer.
Yeah.
Gabe, what are the different ways, in your opinion, that you can prove that a bona fide offer exists?
Well, I think it's really important. Let's go from the perspective of that offer from that buyer with the escalation clause, right? That escalation clause, in my opinion, if written properly, needs to have something in there about, okay, if another competing offer triggers that, right? That $217,000 offer bumped me up to $218,000. You have to prove it to me. And in that escalation clause, you need to say what types of information you're willing to accept to prove that that offer was legitimate. Because you don't want to be in a situation where they're making up a fake offer from a fake brother-in-law. You got to be able to prove that there was a legitimate offer.
So things such as, I'll accept a bona fide offer, and it's okay to redact the names.
Exactly.
Redact other information other than maybe the price.
Exactly. And many of the escalation clauses that I have seen will basically say that the buyer is willing to accept, a proof of that other offer with redacting the sensitive confidential information, financial information, names of the parties. Because at some point, isn't there an honesty level between the parties that needs to exist?
Yeah, I was just going to make that comment. Agents work with agents. Agents should be able to trust agents. All agents work under the same code of ethics.
Yeah.
All agents work under the same rules, regulations, licensing laws, on and on and on. So I would think that there needs to be some trust with that other agent. So if the other agent says, I have a bona fide offer, or this is the bona fide offer, trust that agent. Right? Now, if you've had bad experiences with that agent, maybe you want something in addition. But I would hope there would be some semblance of let's work together and trust.
And if the seller, there might be other ways, confidentiality agreements, I don't know. There's probably other ways to handle an issue, but at the same time, just make sure on the front end you understand what information is going to satisfy that buyer. That's so important. And there might come a time where there might be an escalation clause and the buyer says, I don't want anything redacted at all. I need all that information. At that point, you're going to have to work through between the parties what's going to satisfy them, how that's going to work.
Now, what we have to understand, we cannot forget, is the clients drive the transaction.
Yes, 100%.
Whatever they want, they drive the transaction. We have a duty of obligation to them.
And George, we talked about just this little issue, how complicated this is with an escalation clause. Do you have any concerns of realtors out there drafting these clauses on their own?
Absolutely. Those clauses are so specific, should be so specific, that they can easily be termed as the practice of law.
Yes.
And now we have ethical violations, and now we have all kinds of legal violations, perhaps, liabilities, et cetera, et cetera. So don't draft them yourself.
So if your client's adamant that they want an escalation clause, have them seek out private counsel. Have them have counsel draft something for them. Make sure their interests are protected.
Best practices. Good job.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.